I think there's also a stage, probably at 50 maybe, where women become really ambitious. I hear women say to me, I have done the kids, they're older, I'm ready for it, I've sat in the career corner for 20 years. We have our operational network, we have our personal network, but then we have this group which is the strategic networks, and these are the people that open doors for us or advocate for us. A lot of people don't have a strategic network. If you're earning over around about anything over 150, it will take you 6 months at least to find a role. And so factoring that in, the worst thing you can do is to start doing it, find yourself in that situation.
What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness. And the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges you might be facing, such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hello and welcome to the Financially Empowered Women podcast. My name's Dion Payne, and today I'm joined by Sarah Makris. Let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. Sarah works with senior executives and senior leaders to help them gain visibility, credibility, and positioning, which helps them to future-proof their careers and accelerate their growth as well. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Now, Sarah, as a coach to executive leaders, there's quite a lot that happens before you get to this position. So how did you get into this role?
Yeah, so I used to work, so my whole career has been in corporate, working for Coles and NAB, and I was in corporate affairs for them. So I started my career in PR, spent a year in consumer PR, hated it, had to pack frozen meals. So I thought, no, this is not for me. So corporate affairs was it. Investor relations, government, media, and internal strategy comms. So that was sort of my grounding. I spent 15 years in-house and then went and had babies. And during that time, I was sort of staying at home, looking after little kids was very challenging, I found. So I needed something else. So I did I actually started a fashion blog just to keep really relevant and entertained, I suppose. I loved that. And that sort of really kept me, that was a time when people were sort of starting blogs and really doing lots of fun stuff like that. So that was good. And then I studied fashion design because that had been a bit of a dream of mine. And then I decided, no, all of these things are great fun, but what I really loved was corporate affairs work and communications. And so then I started my own business, and that was about 7 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Fantastic. And it sounds to me like the type of work that you do with others, with executive leaders, is kind of what you did for yourself as well. A lot around positioning and branding and making yourself visible. Can you talk to that a little bit?
So that's really interesting, actually, because when I was very used to being behind the scenes, and starting your own business, you don't really have much of a choice. You have to get out there. My networks were very limited because I'd been out of the work for about 5 or 6 years when I decided to start my business. So networks were lacking, confidence probably was lacking a little bit, and realising that if I was going to help people do this, I had to do it myself. So I had to push myself out there and build my own brand in the market. I become known for my skill set and experience and expertise, and business development, which is something I'd never done before as well. So that was all very much something I had to focus on and get over and really hone, I suppose, for myself. And I had identified that while I had done this work very much for senior executives and CEOs in-house, I had a feeling that this was going to become more important for people, not just people who had their own businesses, but people who are in the corporate world that aren't at CEO level and don't have a whole corporate affairs team for themselves. So so definitely it was something that I sort of embraced and thought, okay, well, if I'm going to help people with it, I need to do it as well. No one's going to come to me if I'm invisible. So yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, cool. Now, it strikes me that there's a couple of kind of pinch points in our lives, and particularly for women, where there's that time that we step out of the workforce to raise children, if that's what we choose to do. And then there's the time when, we're thinking more about we're getting into menopause, and then, looking around and just going, well, this job isn't working for me, or it's time to move on, or we're being pushed on. So can you talk to that? Because I think that those are quite interesting transitions.
And I would also add to that, though, that I think there's also a stage, probably at 50 maybe, where women become really ambitious as well. I think the kids have moved on a little bit. And I hear this sometimes, I hear women say to me, I've got one last job in me, really big job, and then I'm going to set into the sunset, or I'm going to build a portfolio career, or whatever it might be. But it's either that or it's, hey, it's my turn now. I have done the kids, they're older. I'm ready for it. I've sat in the career corner for 20 years or 15 years. Now it's my turn. So sort of have those situations as well. But yes, there's absolutely that point, I think, where some people on the flip side is where you do take a redundancy, for example. So the company's gone through massive change, and you've decided to step out, or you're suddenly sitting there thinking, how did I get to this job? Like, what am I even doing? I need a new role. So yeah, those two definitely are important, and I think they bring their own challenges with them. And so I suppose I really suggest in those situations that you really think clearly about your career. It's one thing to sort of just think about, okay, well, I don't like this job, or what's my next job? But I really encourage my clients to think about your career as a longer term strategy. It's not just the job. Like, what actually do you want to do, especially in the next 10 years? What does that look like? Are you happy being in-house, or do you want to be in a position where you can have a portfolio career? Many women want to be on boards, but you can't just sort of turn that on the minute you get your GAACD course. You literally have to think about planning for that and positioning for that by building your networks and building your brand in the market, your leadership brand, and becoming known for things as well.
Now, when you talk about building your leadership brand, it kind of makes me think about all the stuff that I'm learning in business around, you've got to build your profile, you've got to be seen, you've got to be relevant, you've got to meet people where they're at and be having those conversations. It seems to me that it's kind of similar in terms of what you're talking about as well, in terms of people that are not in their businesses, they're actually in careers and in...
Yeah, it is. I believe now it's really important for executives and people who are in businesses to be building their profile, because this is where if you're not known, so like I often think, when you go shopping and you think, okay, I need a new pair of sneakers. What am I going to buy, right? Like, I know for me, I'm going to go to Nike and Adidas and New Balance, and maybe a couple of others. That's what I'm going to think about. And so it's the same with a job. You know, when someone thinks, okay, who am I going to employ? I need a new chief risk officer, or I need a new digital marketing manager, or whatever. It starts with conversations. You know, who are those people? Who am I going to go and talk to? And that's exactly how an executive search person would think too. So you want to be in that group of people that are first thought of. It's a lot easier to be in that group than to be sitting there with your resume, waving it around, thinking, please, can you count me in for that? So that is part of the reason why I believe that you should be building your leadership brand in the market, because it means opportunities you're not having to be as reactive. You can actually have opportunities coming towards you, which from a long-term perspective can really future-proof your career. It's like having career insurance.
Oh, I like that. And I also think that then it becomes who you know. So, and the more people you put yourself in front of and have those relationships with, you don't know who they know. But if you're front of mind for a broad range of people, then that's got to be better in terms of building that leadership brand for you.
Definitely. And networking is, I think that goes also for two things. One is when you are showing up on a place like LinkedIn and creating content and being out there and being known for something, you're actually naturally going to have people be able to sort of they know who you are, what you stand for. And the same with your networks. So if you are talking to your networks, what's most important is actually that that they know the value you bring. Because often we have three types of networks. We have our operational network with the people we work with every day. We have our personal network, kids, parents on the sports fields, or your hairdresser, or any of the neighbour. But then we have this group, which is the strategic networks. And these are the people that open doors for us or advocate for us, and should be aligned to where we're going. And a lot of people, many people don't have a strategic network. They have a network of people that maybe they worked with years ago. Maybe they, have helped them in the past. Very common for people who have sort of progressed quickly in their careers. Taps on the shoulder. What happens? Their career stalls, and suddenly they go to look at those networks, those strategic networks that they had, and they're starting to retire. So they haven't refreshed their strategic networks. And it's very common, very, very common. So I always recommend, obviously starting with where do you want to go, but who are those people that you need to know and get to know and be aligned with, but they also need to know what value you bring and how they can help you and what you want, so that they can help you open doors. And networking is incredibly important, and something that can really, if you get it right, and the people you network with are the right people, and they know how to help you and they know what you want, that can be a massive game changer in your career.
Oh, that's so cool. And I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit. So, I know people are busy. I know I'm busy. And some people might think, well, networking, that's just going to take time and there's no guarantee of results. What would you say to that? And how can you network effectively?
It's a really good question. And I think some people, it's funny, I would say probably 20% of the people I speak to say, I love networking. It's the best thing ever. The rest?
I like it because I like making friends.
I like it. I actually like it too, but I do understand the time thing, because the time, it's a reality, especially when we've all got such busy jobs, but also the competing priorities of everything else in our life. When in those situations, I'm actually running soon a networking challenge to help people with this, because I feel that it's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it should be something that you can just do in 10 minutes a day, whether it's reaching out to a few people and saying, saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, or let's have a coffee, or, and I think it's about making it a habit. And it doesn't have to be going to a networking function. In fact, I think that's the hardest things to get to. I don't know about you, but I find trying to go to a breakfast, it's like the whole house is disrupted that morning just so I can get out to a breakfast at 7 a.m. and be home by 9. So I get that. But I think it's about choosing wisely, identifying who you're going to maintain relationships with, and just having a rotation and having a habit. And that can look like commenting and, reconnecting with someone on LinkedIn you haven't seen in ages. It could be picking up the phone and having a chat while you're on the sport field watching your child play sport, or while you're, on the treadmill at the gym, whatever it might be, a 15-minute chat, coffees, LinkedIn connections. All of those things can really help to kickstart that reinvigoration of the network.
If you've been watching the news lately, it's easy to feel a sense of despair. Between power-hungry global leaders and absolute chaos and division, it can feel like things are spiraling out of control. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and just to have a sense of powerlessness. But there is a way to push back. We can stop looking at what they are doing and start looking at what we can do. At Women for Homes, we firmly believe that where we put our money is making a choice for the kind of world that we want to live in. Our mission is powerful: to mobilise 1 million women to invest $5,000 to end homelessness by 2030, whilst being financially empowered along the way. It's practical, it's tangible, it's something that we can do now, and it's something that we can do to take our power back. Join us at www.womenforhomes.com. That's women4homes.com. Yeah, and that's beautiful. So I love how we've spoken about the who, and in terms of the network and who you know. What are some of the things that people, women who are listening to this, what do they need to know about staying relevant in their career? Because you shared something earlier with me just around the length of time that it may take to find a new position. Could you share that for the audience?
So at the moment, things are pretty tight economically, but a lot of companies are now getting rid of people. There's just in the banks in the last year and a half, the big 4 banks have got rid of 8,000 people, or signaled that that's what's happening. That's a lot of a lot of people to be out in the market. So there's a lot of good people in the market. But what I find is a lot of people will think, okay, my company's getting made. So there's a couple of two points there. I think one is my company's going through change, and I'm going to be taking a redundancy. Now, a lot of people in that situation will think, okay, great, I've got 6 months of pay, or whatever you might be given, 3 months, it's fine, I'll find a role. Now, the reality is if you're earning over around about anything over 150, it will take you 6 months at least to find a role. And so factoring that in and thinking, okay, well, that's from the minute you start looking. It's not from, and that's not your fault. It's often because, I always recommend having about 5 irons in the fire, or opportunities, warm ones. But it can be the company. The company can take, I've seen clients go through numerous interviews and it's taken longer than 6 months, and that's not their fault, and they want them. So you've really got to think about that. Positioning, don't wait until that happens to you to start doing the work around positioning yourself and building your leadership brand. The worst thing you can do is to start doing it the minute you find yourself in that situation. So that's part of the future proofing. And so that part's really important. But some of the things you can do before that happens in order to ensure that you're not, and this is again part of the future proofing, is to be staying relevant. How do you keep yourself part of the future, part of the conversation, rather than where you've been? And I think I was sharing a story around a lady I spoke to who had been working in transformation, and she had transformation about 3 years ago. It was like it was the job everyone wanted, that there was loads of roles on offer for this. And now I would say it's all about AI. You know, if you can put AI and weave AI into your experience or your expertise, then that's about that. That is absolutely signalling relevance. But 3 years ago, it was transformation. And I spoke to this lady, and she was on a significant income, and she'd worked for a big company. She was now out of work, it'd been about 9 months, and she was looking at roles, and they were paying half. So part of the challenge there had been that the market's moved on, and her relevance, not that she wasn't relevant, but her positioning was not in line now where the market was. So relevance becomes really important, and you can do that every day by just honing in what you want to be known for, and how does that align to where the world, where your company, where the industry is going. And again, visibility is another way to stay really relevant, because you're out there talking about, about what matters, and how your perspective and your experience, shines a light on that and is part of the future.
Yeah, interesting. And I love what you have to say there about visibility. I'm thinking about employers though. So, are they supportive in general of people posting on LinkedIn and showing their expertise in that way? If it's, does it have to be relevant to the company that they're working for, or how does that work?
That's, you know what, there is such a big spectrum of that. At one end, you have the government who don't let you do anything. Right? Literally nothing. To the other end, which is companies really relevant and part of the future, wanting their people to be known as leaders in their industry. So huge spectrum. In the middle, there are companies who might be nervous about you talking about their organisation, which I don't believe you should be building your brand around your organisation anyway. Your brand should be standalone, because you could be moving on in 6 months' time, and you don't want everyone thinking that was you. You were aligned to that company, and that's it. So building your brand away from the company doesn't mean you're not representing the company, but it just means that you're becoming known for something unique about you that travels with you. So let's say you become known for, let's say your specialty is innovation, right? You want to be known for being really innovative. You can do that in any company, and you can be demonstrating your innovation and what you think is innovative in your industry all the time, and it doesn't have to even impact your company. So that's the separation that I find works really well. And then you can use examples of your company when you want to demonstrate some of those examples.
I love that. So it's like, you're the standalone expert, or you're the standalone speaker on this particular topic, but you can use the company that you've got to illustrate examples and be able to share content in that way. I really
and
like
other
that.
companies, companies you might want to work for.
That would be a way to get noticed.
Sure would. But yeah, I have clients who speak at events, and they're becoming known for certain things that they want to be known for, that position them for their next role or their next opportunity that they might want to go to, which sometimes is going out on their own as well.
And yeah, so what I'm seeing from what you're saying is, rather than thinking of I'm in this particular role, think about your career life cycle and where you want to be, and really start being intentional about that. And that will help you be relevant and, help you move on to better opportunities, even if something happens to the company that you're at.
Yeah, and I've seen people who have stayed with a company for a very long time, and their brand has been completely attached to the company, and they have left the company. And, they had a lot of influence at that organisation, and they were known because they had a high-profile role, but then they got made redundant, and all those contacts sort of dried up, and those conversations, and so they were really starting from scratch. So, yeah, so whatever you can do to think of your career as a business, and that you have to market yourself, become known as someone that you want to be known for, something you want to be known for, is part of that protection. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about AI as well, and I find this really fascinating because in one sense, what I've been hearing about AI is that there's biases. There's biases in AI. And of course, there's biases in society. So it makes sense that that's just expressed through AI when everything that it's been learning on is what's expressed in society. So that makes sense. So I feel that as women, we're on a bit of a back foot there anyway, unless we're going in and altering the narrative in some way. But then there's also organisations that are becoming more efficient using AI and therefore not needing as many of their workforce as they've needed to. And I feel, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I get the sense that a lot of the people that are in precarious positions are more likely to be women. What are you seeing that's happening in this case? And what are some of the steps to overcome that?
That's a really interesting point. So Deloitte a few months ago announced they were getting rid of 200 admin staff, which were predominantly females. Yeah, all going offshore. But what I see, I think, is for the people who are wanting to stay in those environments is that their jobs are going to become more interesting, that there's going to be more opportunity. And I hope this is right, that they will have more opportunities to take on other parts of, other bits of works, like say some marketing stuff or the things that AI is now, I suppose, commoditizing or making more task focused, that they can pick up more things, that their work was maybe a bit more interesting. But I think there's still a lot of this, the big companies are moving very slowly. The smaller companies or the sole traders, the small agencies, they are just moving so fast. So it'll be really interesting. But I personally think there'll be an opportunity to be trying lots of things. And I think it comes back again to this whole, you're going to have lots of different jobs in your life. And and so if you can be part of those changes in your organisation, if you can be part of those big projects and the ones that are moving forward and embrace it positively, don't be somebody who wants to bag the changes. You want to be part of those changes, and that's what keeps you relevant and employable as well. I was just going to say about AI in general, and I really believe that AI is fabulous and I love it. I was telling somebody the other day that often I'll lie in my bed and I'll just chat to ChatGPT about something. I'll be like, and I'm thinking this and maybe this, and what do you think about this? And I think it just helps me get all this stuff out of my head and help me go to sleep. I hope I'm not the only one in the world who does that. Yeah. My poor husband, he must just be thinking, what is she doing? But I think there's also right now people sound really good because in terms of on paper, they write better. It's so easy to sound great. Here's my email, make it sound better. Here's my blog post, make it sound better. It's my presentation, make it look better. But what I'm seeing as a key differentiator is your communication skills and how you show up under pressure, how you show up in those moments that aren't pre-planned, prepared for. So I think that will be a big differentiator for people in their careers. If you can really hone those skills, you will stand out.
Yeah, look, I think of AI in terms of me and what I'm doing in my business. I think of it as something that's really amazing for automating processes to help me show up and be more visible. But what I'm seeing is that it's the human to human connection that is really important. And I'm really happy to use AI for all the back end stuff. But when it comes to showing up and speaking and sharing what's happening, like that's my role. I think that I also think that AI is fantastic in that. And when we think of it in terms of
how we can use AI to accelerate our brilliance and accelerate us being in our zone of genius. That's what we need it for. That's my perspective anyway.
I think it's wonderful, and I love that it can distill ideas into things for you and make sense of things, but then also fast track, the unfun stuff.
And see patterns that we may have missed, or in my for myself, I've sort of looked at different situations and gone, okay, well, I see this and this and this. What am I missing? And that's been really,
being able to ask, what aren't I seeing? Where am I going wrong? And even I've been doing a few of those, critiques, like tell me really brutally where you think I should be, I'm not performing where I should be, That's always good fun too. Yeah, whoa, okay. Maybe not that brutal.
Yeah, turn it down a bit.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
It reminds me of the film that I watched some time ago called Hidden Figures. And it's the story of a group of black women who were they called them the computers for the NASA space mission. And then they brought in real computers, and the leader of that group at that time realized that to stay relevant, they needed to understand how to program the computers. And that's where I feel that we need to be with AI, particularly women, understanding how to use it to get the best out of it to stay relevant.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think people, as we get older, so there's already the stereotype of, so there's already the issue, the challenge that a lot of these jobs that are able to be automated are held by women or in administrative roles or more junior roles or not as senior because they've taken a career break or they've sitting in the career corner for a little while while they have children or whatever that might be. But there's also the stereotype around people over 50 or approaching 50 who, so there's a stereotype there, which is you're not technologically savvy, you're at the period in your life where you want to slow down, you don't like change, all these terrible sort of stereotypes, which are not true in my opinion. Everything I've never sort of had that experience with people. And then you've got the fact that, on top of that, you've got age in general. So I think, there's and you're a female. So there's sort of all those sort of stereotypes, which means you have to actually be more visible and show that you're even more relevant to combat that.
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you shared about your masterclass that is coming up. Can you give us a few details about that? And how people can join the masterclass, because I think it's going to be...
Every month I host a masterclass, a free live masterclass. And I love to do a quiz. So there's a little quiz in there to help you work out, where are your opportunities. I'll send you the link and make sure that's there for you.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you for also sharing that you do monthly masterclasses. So if, when this comes out and the data's passed, there'll still be other masterclasses that people can join, and I'm sure they're all going to be extremely valuable.
Yeah, they're always on different topics. So,
well, Sarah, this has been great. I feel like we've just touched the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, but yes.
But what I've really enjoyed from this episode is that it just takes a bit of strategic thinking and a bit of planning to be able to basically ride out the storms that are happening at the moment, the change that is happening. But not just that, it's not just about riding out the storms, it's also about being more fulfilled in where you want to be in life as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Taking that time to really think about it, and also just, not being so busy doing the job that you forget about your career.
There's strategy all the way through. Sarah, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you so much.